People assumed she was merely another restless traveler, just one more face standing in the queue, irritated by the delays. However, when they instructed her to move aside and open her bag, she remained unflinching. Her lack of fear wasn't due to courage alone, but because she understood precisely what they were going to discover and the implications it would carry. Once they comprehended who she truly was, reversing the damage became impossible. The remaining question was, who else present had just discovered the truth? Silver sheets of rain cascaded outside the government building, creating blurred patterns as they streaked down the tall windows, while the visitor line slowly advanced forward. The marble floor reflected the cold glow cast by the fluorescent lights inside, and the air carried faint scents of wet coats and coffee. If you're enjoying this story of hidden strength and dignity, please like this video and subscribe to Hidden Sparks for more incredible tales of unsung heroes. Standing at the line's center was a woman in her mid-30s. Her identification bore the name Mara Ellis, 5'9", with dark blonde hair secured in a low ponytail and piercing gray eyes that observed the line ahead without revealing impatience or fear. She dressed in simple jeans, boots, and a fitted black jacket, the type that conveyed nothing except her preference for easy movement. The metal detectors at the front buzzed every few minutes, followed by guards shouting orders at the next person in line. Someone's belts triggered the alarm. Another person's laptop bag was emptied and searched through. Mara maintained loosely clasped hands in front of her, with her duffel bag slung over one shoulder. Unlike other line waiters who fidgeted or scrolled through their phones, she stood perfectly still. Upon reaching the front, the younger guard, Officer Lane, gestured her forward. His eyes moved from her face to her ID card. He examined it under the light and frowned slightly. "This is an older issue," he stated. "You should have updated this last year." Mara remained unflinching. "I have an appointment," she responded calmly, presenting an embossed letter bearing a seal. Lane passed the letter to his partner, a stockier man named Ortiz, who reviewed it before looking back at her. "You're here for consultation," he read aloud, squinting at the fine print. "That's correct," Mara confirmed. Lane raised an eyebrow. "What kind of consultation?" "That's between me and the department," she replied. Her refusal to provide details immediately irritated Lane. He pointed toward a secondary table near the wall. "Step aside, ma'am, secondary screening." The line behind her expressed frustration with groans. Mara complied without objection, placing her duffel bag on the cold metal table. Ortiz followed, snapping on gloves with excessive enthusiasm. "What's in the bag?" Mara replied simply. "That's so helpful. Let's take a look," Ortiz said. When Lane opened the first zipper, the contents appeared unremarkable. Running shoes, a water bottle, a first aid kit, a rolled-up windbreaker were revealed. Lane snorted softly. "You could have just said gym gear." But Ortiz was already searching deeper. He extracted a heavy black notebook, a sealed envelope, and a small box that clinked faintly when placed down. Lane picked up the notebook and opened it. The pages contained tidy writing, numbers, codes, maps. He frowned. "What's this?" "My notes," Mara answered. "Notes on what?" "On things you wouldn't understand," she said quietly, her eyes remaining steady. Ortiz laughed under his breath. "Oh, we've got a mysterious one here. What do you say, Lane? Spy, assassin, or just delusional?" Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and share this video with someone who appreciates stories of quiet strength. Hidden Sparks brings you these incredible tales every week. Mara didn't react to the mockery. She simply clasped her hands behind her and waited. The small crowd nearby began whispering among themselves, drawn by the unfolding scene. Lane unzipped another bag compartment and pulled out what appeared to be a folded flag and a set of laminated cards covered in unfamiliar insignias. "What is this?" he demanded. Mara glanced at it. "You wouldn't believe me if I told you." Ortiz scoffed. "Try us." She said nothing. Behind them, the visitor line had completely stopped moving. Even the other guards had paused to watch, sensing something unusual. Lane held up a thin metal badge that had fallen from the bag. Unlike a normal ID, it was unmarked except for a single etched number and a small stylized hawk insignia. "What is this?" Lane asked again, this time his tone less confident. Mara finally looked up and met his eyes. "That," she said quietly, "is the reason you should put everything back and let me go." But they didn't. Not yet. The room's atmosphere had shifted. What began as an ordinary security check was now drawing stares and hushed conversations from those waiting in line. Even Ortiz, who moments ago had been smirking at her calm defiance, now hesitated slightly before continuing to rummage through the bag. The small metal badge with the hawk insignia sat on the table like an unspoken challenge. Lane held it between his thumb and finger, turning it over and frowning at the strange etched number on the back. "This doesn't match any department ID I've ever seen," he muttered. Mara remained silent, her gray eyes fixed forward, as if she'd already decided the next 5 moves before they had even taken the first. Ortiz finally broke the quiet, jabbing his gloved finger toward the next zipper. "Open this one too," he ordered. Mara gave him the smallest of nods. "By all means," she said, her voice still even, but now with an edge. Ortiz yanked the zipper open and pulled out another layer of contents. A black leather folder stamped with nothing but a gold circle. A small velvet pouch that clinked faintly when he shook it. A folded document marked "Confidential" in red. Ortiz dropped the document on the table and tried to unfold it, but Mara's hand shot out lightning fast and pressed it down before he could. "That," she said, her tone sharp now, "is not for you." Lane stiffened. "Ma'am, this is a federal building. You don't tell us what is and isn't ours to see." But Ortiz had gone quiet, his attention fixed on the strange leather folder. He'd opened it to reveal an official-looking card with Mara's photo, but no department name, no seal, only the words "Level 9 Clearance, Eyes Only." Under that, a single line, "Operations Specialist Division, Shadowlark." Lane frowned, trying to read over his partner's shoulder. "Shadow what? That's not even on our clearance chart," he murmured. Mara slowly straightened and looked directly at him. "Correct," she said. "It wouldn't be." The murmuring crowd grew louder now. A man in a business suit stepped forward slightly, curiosity outweighing his caution. "What exactly are you?" he asked quietly, almost to himself. For the first time, Mara smiled faintly, though there was no warmth in it. Someone who learned a long time ago that the uniform doesn't always come with recognition, she said. Ortiz shook his head as though trying to snap himself out of a fog and reached into the bag's final compartment. His hand emerged holding a tightly wrapped black fabric. As he began to unroll it, several gasps rose from the crowd. It was a jacket, clearly military, but sleek, modern, covered in strange minimalistic insignias nobody could place. On the shoulder, the same hawk emblem glimmered faintly under the sterile fluorescent lights. Lane ran a hand over it, his earlier confidence crumbling. "Where did you get this?" he asked, though the question sounded more like a plea. Mara's eyes flicked down at the jacket for a moment before returning to his. "I didn't get it," she said coolly. "It was issued. After years of work you couldn't begin to imagine." Ortiz studied the jacket closer, then looked up. "Some of these patches," he whispered, pointing to a faint stitched number on the sleeve, "don't even exist in the database." "That's because they were never meant to," Mara replied. A murmur ran through the onlookers as everyone exchanged glances. Lane swallowed hard and stepped back, but then, grasping at what little authority he felt he had left, he crossed his arms. "This still doesn't explain what you're doing here, or what's in that confidential document. You're going to have to come with us for further questioning." The words hung in the air. Mara didn't move for a long moment. Then she leaned forward, her voice low, calm, deadly serious. "Are you sure that's the choice you want to make? You'll need more than those gloves to handle what comes next." Ortiz stiffened. Lane faltered, but he tried to mask it with a scoff. "Big talk for someone waiting in line like everyone else," he said, but his tone lacked conviction now. Mara simply stood there, hands folded behind her, waiting, letting the silence work for her. Then, from the far side of the atrium, another presence entered. A tall man in a crisp suit, flanked by two uniformed military aides, stepped through the security barrier without slowing down. His eyes locked on Mara the moment he saw her. Lane's voice cracked slightly as he called out, "Excuse me, sir, this is a restricted," but the man cut him off with a single gesture. His voice calm, but carrying a quiet authority that silenced the entire room. "That woman," he said, nodding at Mara, "is exactly where she's supposed to be." The silence was deafening. All eyes in the atrium now turned to the man in the suit as he strode forward. His shoes clicked sharply on the polished marble floor, echoing louder than the murmurs of the gathered crowd. His face betrayed nothing. No anger, no urgency, but his presence alone seemed to drain the color from Officer Lane's cheeks. When he reached the security table, he stopped directly between Mara and the two officers. Slowly, deliberately, he reached into his breast pocket and produced a black leather case, flipping it open. The badge inside gleamed gold under the fluorescent lights. Department of Defense, Director, Shadowlark Oversight Division. Lane took a half step back involuntarily. Ortiz froze, his hand still clutching the strange jacket. The man closed the badge with a quiet snap and looked directly at Mara. "You're late," he said softly. Mara's lips curved into the faintest suggestion of a smirk. "Blame your gatekeepers," she replied. The man turned his attention to Lane and Ortiz. "This woman," he began, his tone calm but cutting, "outranks everyone in this building, in this city, in more ways than you'll ever understand. You will return her property, apologize, and pray she doesn't file a report on how you've mishandled a classified operative." Ortiz opened his mouth as if to protest, but shut it again when the man's eyes met his. Lane cleared his throat nervously. "We didn't know." "That's exactly the problem," the man replied sharply. The crowd was now silent. The atmosphere transformed from curiosity to awe. Phones that had been recording earlier were now being lowered. Something about the man's tone and Mara's quiet, unflinching presence made everyone realize they were witnessing something far beyond what they understood. Mara extended her hand, palm up, without another word. Ortiz swallowed hard and carefully returned each of her belongings to the duffel bag. The folder, the pin, the uniform jacket, handling them with the kind of reverence one might use with priceless artifacts. When he finished, he zipped the bag shut and slid it across the table to her. She picked it up with effortless grace and slung it over her shoulder. Lane, his voice small now, murmured, "Apologies, ma'am. We were just following procedure." Mara finally looked directly at him. "Procedure," she said evenly, "is meant to protect people, not to humiliate them. Don't forget that." With that, she turned to the man in the suit, who nodded once and gestured toward the waiting elevator. Together, they walked through the parted crowd, which now stood respectfully on either side, and into the open lift. As the door slid shut, the last thing the crowd saw was Mara tucking a strand of hair behind her ear, her calm eyes scanning the room as if committing every detail to memory. And then she was gone. Outside the building, the sun had broken through the morning clouds. Mara stepped out onto the steps, breathing in the crisp air. The man in the suit lingered at her side, but said nothing at first. Finally, he spoke. "They'll never know, will they? What you've done, what you've given." Mara adjusted the strap of her bag on her shoulder and looked straight ahead. "They don't need to," she said quietly. A group of young soldiers passing by on the sidewalk stopped to glance at her, sensing something they couldn't quite name. She gave them a faint nod as she descended the steps and walked away, the sound of her boots fading into the city's din. Because some people don't need medals or parades. Some people carry their victories and their scars in silence. And somewhere beyond the headlines and ceremonies, they keep watch for the rest of us. If this story moved you, if it reminded you to never underestimate the quiet strength of those around you, please like this video, subscribe to Hidden Sparks, and share it with someone who believes in dignity and respect. And above all else, here at Hidden Sparks, we honor the unseen and the unforgettable. Until the next story, stay vigilant, stay strong.